What's up, you guys? This is Devin from CenturyFX Studios, back with another video. And today we're going to be talking about whether or not you're ready to use manual mode. Now, we're getting into this manual mode series pretty deep right now, and this kind of coincides with whether or not you're a real photographer in that video that I made, how to tell if you're a real photographer or not. But we made this video, or I made this video, just to attack whether or not you're ready to use manual mode. Because manual mode is not easy. That's why a lot of people don't want to use it. But say, for example, if you're taking a picture and you're afraid of getting it wrong, you're afraid of somebody telling you that your images suck, you're afraid of somebody cussing you out because of an image, because a lot of people like to look at the back of your screen. They want to know whether or not you're a trustworthy photographer, especially if they had a photographer in the past that allowed them to look at the back of the screen and they were a pro, and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm ready to get blown away by the back of your screen, and you're not ready to do that with manual mode, then chances are you're not ready for manual mode. Manual mode is not necessarily, in my opinion, to down you. If you're not able to use manual mode, it's not the end of the world. Like in the video I was saying, a lot of people are mad. They're upset at the reasons why people don't want to use manual mode. The reason you're not a real photographer if you don't shoot in manual mode. Well, who cares? You see what I'm saying? If you're trying to become a better photographer, if you're trying to up your game, if you're willing to put in the hours, there was some famous photographer, I forget his name, but he said you had to take 10,000 images before you're considered a good photographer or great photographer. Well, it's the same concept with pretty much everything in life. If you're going to be a good cook, you probably got to cook the same thing 100 times before it becomes actually great, and you understand exactly how it's supposed to taste, why this does, and this ingredient's not right, this ingredient. Same thing with manual mode. If you didn't do the ISO correctly, I'm getting a buttload of noise instead of getting the right amount of exposure, the right amount of sharpness, the right amount of color rendition. I didn't light this scene correctly, and therefore when I shoot manual mode, I am not getting the best out of my camera. When I should be at ISO 100, I'm shooting at ISO 6400 or 12800 because I have my own lighting, but I don't know how to tell my camera to use the light that's available. Or my colors are off because I didn't know how to white balance correctly. I didn't know going from scene to scene to scene while I was in custom white balance mode. I didn't know that that was going to change my white balance over time. I didn't know that putting a custom white balance into my camera would make my camera stay at 1 white balance or 1 Kelvin temperature as far as what it was seeing for the whites. Or my image is too blurry because the shutter speed is too high and I don't know how to fix it. Or my image is blurry because the aperture is too wide open. I'm shooting at 1.8 when I should have been shooting at f8. But I love my lens so much that I can't stop shooting at 1.8 for the sake of the clarity of the image. Or my image is too blurry and I don't even know why the heck it's too blurry. Or my image is too blurry because my lens is too dirty. All of these are symptoms of someone who does not or is not ready for manual mode. Is not ready to click over to manual mode. So if you're scared that your camera can mess something up, or if you're relying on the fact that you just got a new camera that's 24, 40, 50, 60 megapixels, if you will. You just got this new camera and you're like, oh my goodness, everything is right, but I take a picture and everything is wrong. You're not ready for manual mode. If you're not ready to take control of everything that the camera has to offer and all the sharpness that your lens has to offer as it relates to the sensor of your camera, you're not ready to use manual mode. Or if you're not ready to go into post-production or use RAW, you're probably not ready for manual mode, because RAW and post-production go hand in hand. Because why? Because RAW says, if you're shooting a RAW, I'm talking about raw image quality, your CR2s, your NEF files, I think, for Nikon, and your ARWs for Sony. If you're not shooting in those file formats, those .ARWs, those .NEF, .CR2s, you're probably not ready for manual mode, because RAW says, hey, I'm ready to take control of what image I got out of the camera, how much image quality I got, how much image information I got in each tone, dark tones, light tones, highlights. I'm ready to take control of all of that. If you're not ready for that, if you're not ready to, I don't know if I have it with me right now, if you're not ready to use a white balance card, you're probably not ready to use manual mode or white balance for that matter. But typically, if you're using manual mode, you're probably going to be using custom white balance, Kelvin, or anything else like that. If you're not ready to change your ISO when auto ISO doesn't work out, you're probably not ready for manual mode, because you can go to auto ISO for manual mode. I do it all the time because I know exactly what my camera's all about. But my 5D Mark II can't do auto ISO. When I put it on auto ISO for manual mode, it stays at ISO 400, which I know is not correct when I'm using other cameras in the same situations at 6400 ISOs, at 12,800 ISO, and above. So, when you're stuck in a situation where you don't know how to use auto ISO, you're probably not ready for manual mode, because auto ISO is really a cushion for those of us who are in extreme situations. Now, when I'm in the studio, I'm all manual. No auto ISO, no nothing. There's a lot of times where I cut off auto ISO because I think the camera's wrong and I don't want it to jack up all of the shadows, especially if I'm using like a flash. I rarely use auto ISO. In fact, I hate auto ISO when I'm using a flash in manual mode. But if all this stuff sounds foreign to you, you probably shouldn't be using manual mode. It's not the end of the world if you don't know manual mode quite yet, but it's extremely important that you know it if you want to be a good photographer, if you want to get the 24 megapixels out of that camera, if you're trying, or let's put that with a caveat, because not every lens will give you the maximum amount, or if any lens gives you the maximum amount of clarity through your camera. But if you want the best color rendition, the most sharpness out of your image when it comes to presence and contrast, you're going to want to shoot manual mode. There's no reason why you get a camera that can shoot in manual mode and you probably don't want to shoot in it. Because the whole point of manual mode is you taking control. The difference between this higher end camera that you can change lenses with, and it's modular, you can change lenses, and some other cameras you can change other things, and or some of the higher end cameras like your global shutter cameras, your medium formats. All those are designed in a certain way for you to get a certain result. You can actually put more battery packs on it, all of the accessories. It's modular because you can put a flash on there, you can put a lens on there, all these other things to make your image greater. You mean to tell me you're not going to take full control over every single thing that your camera can give you? Now, I understand that it can be hard taking images out in situations where you don't know what's going to happen. Most of the time, you're taking pictures of things that don't involve you personally. It's not a selfie. You don't have control over anything. If you're outside and you're taking a picture of your son's baseball or daughter's baseball game, whatever, sports events, or you're at a field trip, you can't control anything that happens, whether it be the speed of the subject or speed of the light that comes through that lens, how much light comes through that lens, especially if you don't have a lot of money. So, nevertheless, learn manual mode on your own time. Don't worry about what other people say. You're not a real photographer, you don't shoot. Don't worry about that. You want to be able to take control of your camera when you're ready. Because you don't want to be back, almost like the film days, you don't want to be back at your house looking at your images thinking, wow, if I only could have did that for the entire thing, then I would have had a better result. Now, you pretty much always have that. If you're a pro photographer and you want to get better, you always have that mentality, but you don't want to have it to the point where you're like, oh, there's no way I can send these pictures to somebody. If you're at that point where you're like, there's no way I can send no pictures to somebody, and you're manual mode the whole time, chances are you're not ready for manual mode. My advice to you would be to go outside, take a picture of something simple, make note of all light changes, all your surroundings, what time of day it is, what color the light is, how sharp your image is, how much contrast you have, and is that the best your camera can do for that situation at that moment in time? And do that about 100 times. 100, 200, 10,000 times, however many times it takes, because you have digital now. I'm assuming most of the time people are using digital if they have this issue. So you just delete the images if you don't like them. And then you might want to save quite a few of those images and really examine them image to image to image. Go to properties, go to info if you're on a Mac computer, click right on your image, go to properties info, look at that image's information, shutter speed, ISO, aperture, or if you're in Lightroom, Photoshop, look at that image information, the metadata, extra data, whatever you call it. Look at that image information and tell yourself, okay, if this is what I got with this lens, this exposure, this mode, bang, 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 how do I get that right in the next image? How do I, so on and so forth, get that right? And so until you're looking at the image at this point and you're like, wow, I didn't know my camera could do that. Because chances are, if you're not shooting in manual mode, your camera can do something that you don't even know it can do. I'm done with CenturyFX Studios. Keep watching the videos. I'm going strictly on manual mode right now. And stay tuned for the next episode.